Today we've got a great malicious compliance story of a company getting karma for refusing to let their workers work from home. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, you want a list of every item I do every day? Okay. I have a manager who is, well, I won't say what I want to call him. He's a thumbs down kind of guy. He is especially a thumbs down kind of guy towards women who work for him. We're talking a gross nail beds, pink eye carrying, hit with a hammer and swollen with infection sort of thumb facing down kind of guy. Here I am, one of the maybe 5 women in the department of 40 to 50 people. Mind you, I have a supervisor I directly report to. The supervisor is always confused when our manager gets on to me about something and is just as surprised as I am. He is never approached first. He encourages me and tells me to keep my chin up. The micromanaging has reached the stage of my manager wanting to receive a list of every single thing I do during the day. My malicious compliance seems insignificant, but oh boy, does it make me feel better. 1. I slightly changed the subject of every single daily email so they don't group together in his inbox. When he wants to micromanage, he'll have to dig. 2. I bloat the heck out of those emails with useless info. Things like, I asked someone a question or reviewed internal policy on XYZ to ensure correctness, with the next line as, I did XYZ in compliance with the policy. 3. I have the line items very vague. Instead of, I close this task of ticket number with issue XYZ by doing XYZ, I'll put things like, closed ticket number. Ever since I started this, he hasn't been replying to them as much. I had no idea this would work as well as it does. I'm a very detailed person, and it's going against the core of my being of sending such a terrible deliverable, but dang does it make me smile. Yes, I'm job hunting. Yes, it will be devastating for him to lose me doing the tasks alone that most businesses have an entire team on. Yes, am I excited to send an email that only says 2-week notice, then take PTO that I have for those 2 weeks. Edit, I forgot one. I schedule it to send after I know he leaves the office. Edit, working on a bulleted list of all the amazing tips to make it even better you all keep giving. This is fantastic. I'll have it here so we can all have a united accomplishment in malicious compliance. Third edit, 29 items on today's so far, 6 hours left in the workday. Usually when I hear a story like this come up where a manager is like, you need to list every single thing you do, one of the best things you can do to show them how dumb it is to list everything. There's been a number of stories like that came through that are like, 7:30 a.m. arrived at the office, 7:45 a.m. went to the bathroom because my stomach was feeling a bit queasy, 7:46 a.m. washed my hands. Wild Butterscotch 977 commented on the post, you should bury questions for him deep inside of a lengthy report of tasks. Then follow up by email 24 hours later to inquire as to when you might get an answer to your previously emailed question. Do this in every email to force him to read the entire thing and find the questions. OP replied, I'm bowing down to you, amazing idea, adding it in. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of malicious compliance, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Our next story is, shredded my goose pic? My homie crushed his boss's rules and exposed his dirty secret. My friend Idris recently shared this wild story from his first job, and I'm still shook. Idris was 17 when he started at this grimy call center. Back home, he's got a whole crew of geese in his yard. He's obsessed with them, treats them like pets, and has a favorite named Blinchik, Russian for pancake. He brought a little wallet-sized photo of Blinchik to work just to keep his spirits up in that depressing dump. But his boss, Dave, saw it and flipped out. Dave had this hardcore rule, no personal items on your desk. It's about professionalism. Meanwhile, his own desk was a trash heap, old mugs, random figurines, even some rusty fish statue. Idris says Dave had these weird tics. He would go from passive-aggressive whispers to fake nice vibes in a heartbeat. Total oddball. Anyway, Dave clocked the goose photo and went nuclear. He made Idris rip it to shreds in front of everyone, muttering about rule breaking. Idris, just a 17-year-old kid, froze. He had no clue how to stand up for himself back then and just did it. He says he almost cried but held it together so he wouldn't look weak in front of the team. Blinchik's photo was toast, and Dave smirked like he had just won something. Idris wasn't letting it slide. Dave wants me to obey? I'll maliciously comply with him. Next day, he rolled in with nothing. No pen, no notepad, no headset. When Dave asked what the deal was, Idris hit him with, "You said no personal items. I'm waiting for the company to hook me up." Dave lost it, but Idris doubled down. "It's your rule." The team jumped in, half of them stopped bringing their stuff too, and the whole operation tanked. Customers were raging on the phones, calls were dropping, and Dave was scrambling to make everyone work normal. Eventually he caved and mumbled, "Fine, bring what you need, just keep it low-key." Idris came back with a fresh Blinchick photo and slapped it on his desk. Dave didn't say squat. But it gets crazier. A couple of weeks later, Dave tried to fire Idris for insubordination. Idris, now sharper, had recorded the whole no personal items freakout on his phone, legal where we're at, and sent it to HR with a rundown of Dave's hypocrisy. HR didn't axe Dave, but they gave him a slap on the wrist, and he chilled out. Then the real bomb hit. Turns out, Dave had been skimming cash from the petty cash box for years. Small grabs, but steady. Idris says he cooked up the rule obsession to keep everyone stressed and off his tail. He would snag money from the drawer, supposedly for coffee, paper, office junk, and mark it as office needs. It added up to a hefty chunk, though no one's dropped an exact number. His weird mix of passive-aggressive jabs and over-the-top strictness kept newbies like Idris too spooked to dig deeper. That photo meltdown? Idris figures Dave was just flexing to throw everyone off his scent. Dave got busted when a senior coworker noticed the office expenses weren't lining up. They canned him and later even filed charges. Idris says he's still stoked about how he accidentally took down a crook by playing Dave's own dumb game. Blinchick's still chilling in his yard with the rest of the geese, honking at anyone who steps too close. I can imagine it's your first day, you're scared, you don't want to lose the job, but going through with ripping up that picture in front of everybody? Like, I would sooner shove it in my pocket or put it inside a backpack or something than actually go through with ripping it up. And considering they have HR, even at 17 and scared out of my mind, I wouldn't rip it up and I'd still lean on that. Anonymous commented, "Justice for Blinchick." Black Cloud replied, "Peace was never an option." Our next story is, you want me to stop logging bugs? Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. Hi, longtime lurker, first-time poster. This happened a couple of years ago when I was working as a QA analyst for a mid-sized software development company. Thought some of you might enjoy it. I was part of a Scrum team working on a new feature for a large enterprise client. Our team was made up of the usual suspects, devs, a Scrum master, a product owner, PO, and myself as the sole QA. Now, I'm a pretty thorough tester. I take pride in not just finding bugs, but documenting them clearly with steps to reproduce, screenshots, logs, you name it. Some devs loved me for it, others not so much. One dev in particular, we'll call him Mike, really hated having bugs logged against his code. He had this passive-aggressive attitude where any issue I found was user error or not a bug. This guy had a serious ego problem and believed his code was flawless. We were getting close to a deadline and I was logging a lot of issues. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to warrant attention. Some were cosmetic, others were functional, but all were valid. Mike didn't like that I was slowing things down. During a sprint planning meeting, Mike went on a mini rant about how QA was bogging the team down with unnecessary bugs and how we shouldn't waste time logging minor issues that don't block functionality. Surprisingly, the product owner, who was also feeling the deadline pressure, sided with him. The decision was made. From now on, only log critical/blocker issues. Everything else can be reported informally or ignored. I clarified, so you want me to stop logging non-blocking bugs, even if they're reproducible? The product owner replied, exactly, let's focus on shipping. I said, you got it, boss. For the next 2 sprints, I only logged blockers, like the app crashes or data corruption level stuff. Everything else, I kept to myself. No documentation, no Jira tickets, nada. The release went live, and all heck broke loose. Users were finding buttons overlapping on mobile, broken tooltips, form validation failures, inconsistent date formats, slow load times on certain views. None of it was technically blocking, but it made the experience feel amateurish. Cue a very uncomfortable post-mortem with the client. The product owner asked why none of these issues were found during QA. I just smiled and said, "They were found, but per your instruction, I didn't log them." Silence. Mike tried to chime in, but the damage was done. Upper management got a wind of the fiasco and mandated that all issues, regardless of severity, must be logged going forward. Mike was moved to a different team shortly after. Not just because of this, but it didn't help, and I got an apology and a thank you from the PO. Isn't this why most ticketing systems have a severity tag level attached to them? I mean, even if it's the most niche, cosmetic, non-important bug ever, wouldn't you at least want to have it logged? You can ship with that bug still there. I think the real problem here is they couldn't work around the idea of not being perfect, even if that means their idea of perfect is a horrendously buggy product. Apprehensive Owl 9550 commented, "The biggest mistake is not having fired Mike from the first mistake." Cold Refuse 7236 replied, "Isn't the real error the product owner? He should have been the backstop." Our next story is, "If you don't want to be here, then leave, because I don't need you." The shift lead who said it, Adriana, 20-something, tried to get me fired after dismissing me from my shift. I got the job at 16 because I was dating one of the other shift leads. Already off to a terrible start, I know. My boyfriend was one of those characters that people either loved or hated. Mostly hated if you come from a loving home, because he was admittedly a terrible person. And Adriana especially hated him. I'm sure she had her reasons. One Saturday morning, I showed up to work to find Adriana yammering about my boyfriend calling out that day. He didn't tell me he was calling out, and since Adriana was visibly upset already about his absence, I texted him to ask, "What's up? Why did you call out?" Adriana is really mad about being short-staffed on a Saturday, and now she's going to be yelling at me about it all shift. My boyfriend was a real crap stirrer, and I was somehow incredibly freaking oblivious to this at the time. I texted him mostly to vent, but of course he used this as an excuse to start an argument with Adriana. He texts her something accusing her of talking crap, which for the record I did not say she was doing, and I can hear from the kitchen she immediately started yelling into oblivion about how if I have something to say, I should say it to her face, and how I'm a stupid freaking dumb jerk, literally so freaking stupid. This jerk is the dumbest girl I've ever met, why are you even with him? So valid, queen. I was a little dense back then, I guess. Amidst her tirade about how stupid she thinks I am, she comes into the office where I'm eating my pre-shift breakfast of Boston Market macaroni in total silence. This whole time I was just dissociating into my Mac because what the ever-loving freak else would I do? Not only did I come from a home where yelling often led to me dodging flying lamps and drawers, but I was genuinely scared she would have her cousin jump me if I ticked her off well before this even happened. So she's standing there, I'm eating, kinda smiling out of discomfort, just watching her tear into me even more about my intelligence. Why? Because my boyfriend called out of work. It was honestly so bizarre, had escalated so quickly, and I was so dissociated, life kinda felt like it was moving in slow motion in that moment. She eventually says the magic line that finally snapped me out of my disassociation and freed me from my wage slave chains that lovely Saturday morning. "If you don't want to be here, then leave, because I don't need you." Now again, this is Saturday morning at a Pizza Hut that is already short-staffed. I knew for a fact that she was bullcrapping, not needing me, but I also knew that she said it right in front of the office cameras. So I'm thinking, that sounded like approval to leave early, didn't it? Especially after being freaking berated for 15 minutes straight as soon as I walked in the door for something I didn't even do. She later tried to get me fired for walking out of my shift, and the first thing I did was tell the general manager to check the cameras. I should have just let them fire me, honestly. Adriana, if you're out there, I live every day thanking God that I didn't have to experience a phase of life that included screaming at 16-year-old girls first thing in the morning at my big fancy Pizza Hut shift lead job. I heard you also got fired for assaulting a customer. It's okay. I understand that being a shift lead at Pizza Hut is a very high-stakes environment to be working in. No, really, you don't look insane at all screaming your head off inside a fast food joint on a near daily basis. Completely sane and very intelligent behavior right there. Is it just like people's personal lives leaking in that make them treat like the Pizza Hut like the Pentagon or something? I mean, why do we gotta be out here traumatizing people who are 16 years old, probably their first job, and they're almost certainly getting paid close to minimum wage? I mean, could you imagine being OP and getting this job, albeit through some kind of nepotism, and being like, yeah, I got a job and I'm entering the workforce and I'm gonna make some money, and then you gotta deal with a person like that? Corona has commented, I mean, I have actually worked an identical job, and yes, it can be a very high-stress job, though only really in peak hours, not the morning, what the heck? But yeah, you never yell at your employees. Also, what? You can't control their personal relationships, nor blame them for other workers' actions. What a jerk. Glad she got her comeuppance. OP responded, I've been in the service industry 10 years. If you don't know how to manage stress of working at a pizza shop, I don't know what to tell you for real. Our next story is, manager said only by the planagram. This started several months ago. I work as a DSD, direct store delivery driver, servicing bread and cake products for a certain yellow store chain. The style provides us a rack to display our cakes on, and it has a specific planagram. Despite this, it's generally agreed that each driver can use their own discretion to stock the shelf, including items not planned for the shelf, all except for one. The GM of my smallest store pulls me aside a few months back and complained about my cake rack. I've had several people complaining about the prices on that shelf being mismatched, and we're forced to honor the price on the shelf. This was a bit of an unusual complaint, but I was willing to fix it, saying, well, we can fix the pricing on that shelf, no problem. I'll just need you to scan the products and make me a tag, and I'll take care of putting them up. She immediately snapped back, you know that shelf has a planagram, right? How about we just stock it correctly? Very well, as they say, cue malicious compliance. I begin stripping everything off the shelf that didn't match the tags on the rack, which meant I took everything away. The GM immediately started questioning why her most popular sales were being taken out. I just said, well, none of this is on the planagram, so I'll take it out and replace it with what's on there, like you said. Dejected, she leaves me to it. This compliance has paid off twice. The first time, the same GM confronted me as soon as I arrived, advising me of holding out on her, commenting on all the nice cakes at a different location store she's never seen in her store. I reiterated that they're not on her planagram, so I can't put them in. She snaps back, well, can't we just put some in anyway? And I say with a smirk, not if there's not a spot for it. And she just tells me to carry on. The second time is when our imitation butter cookies rolled out. She begged me to give some to her store, and I asked if she had a spot for them. She says there can be room made, but I asked if there was a planagram for it. She gets mad and says, I'm tired of you using my words against me like this. I just want the seasonal stuff. And I tell her, admittedly a little pointedly, well, it's what you said. I can't do anything about it. And she just limps off. She very well could have all the fun snacks if she would just stop being a helicopter manager. All I'm going to say is, usually most people are going to be offended when somebody complains about their cake rack. I'm working with what God gave me here. Or, my subsidiary of Hostess gave me. Head Razmataz7174 commented, I'm tired of you using my words against me. Peak malicious compliance energy on the part of OP. This is how you handle anyone who has ridiculous demands. Follow the instructions to a T. Most of the time, they figure out pretty quick that what they said is not what they actually wanted. Our next story is, something added in my contract to restrict me was something I later used to help me. When I first joined a particular company, they had a number of offices in the nearby city because they wanted to, essentially, force us to work in whichever office they wanted. They added a line to my contract saying that I could work anywhere in the city. Years later, and those offices have gone. There's just the one. The clause is removed from contracts for anyone else starting at the company. Then, our department gets outsourced to another company. As part of a UK law, which makes transfer of people between companies easier, they have to take my contract as is, which they did. They then decided to reallocate many of the people to other parts of their company throughout the country, expecting you to commute sometimes hours away, except me. That part of my contract, still present, meant that they could only send me somewhere in the local city. And they had no other offices there, so I stayed. Years later, I'm insourced back, and the company tries to send me to the other side of the country for a few days to work. I tap on my contract once again. There's something refreshing about being able to use a contract clause, initially added to force me to do something for them, against the company. I think the real tell here is OP must be pretty darn good at their job if they're the only person they can't relocate, and they've relocated pretty much everybody else, and yet OP's still employed by them. I mean, you would think with OP's contract clause, if it was such a burden and a struggle to work around, they would have done away with OP a while back. Crap Brit Girl commented, "Bloody love Toop." When the IT support contract I worked on was picked up by an American company, it came as something of a shock to them. They started off by handing out all of their contracts, which were quickly returned, unsigned, and told to check the law. They find that most of the engineers were already on contracts they couldn't change, including a few that went back over 20 years originally written by companies that had long gone. It caused them some headache as each person had different contracted hours, holiday time, overtime pay, etc. One thing that wasn't in most contracts was out-of-hours weekend work, which previously was paid time and a half or double time for Sundays. When they needed bodies to move desks and computers over a weekend, and we're told we'll get time off in lieu, they were shocked when everyone turned it down. Our next story is my first good one. I was brought in on cleanup for Memorial Day at my job. It was holiday pay, so I didn't mind. $82.50 an hour. I started my list, which was sweeping a few inches of dust from an area. The new foreman was being a jerk, told me to not leave the area until there was no dust. The thing is, dust is a major byproduct of our operation. As soon as I would finish, there would be a light coating of dust again. I came down to start the next project and he checked my area, saw the light dusting, and yelled at me not to leave that area until there was no dust. Fine by me. I spent 8 hours at $82.50 pushing a broom. And at shift change, the next foreman asked what I was doing. I explained it to him. He laughed and said if I wanted a double, just keep sweeping. So I wound up pushing a broom for 16 hours, and the new foreman was written up for the company spending over $1,000 for me to sweep one area all day. You know, I've never been one that's been big on cleaning, always been kind of a super annoying chore to me, but hey, can I also apply and get into whatever cleaning job pays $82.50 an hour? I mean, I guess I'm in the wrong career field, what the heck? Critical Speed 3762 commented, "Whatever your job is, I want it. I push a broom for 16 hours for $1,320. OP replied, "Union laborer. I had other tasks on the list, shoveling rock, shoveling coal, etc., but I'll take the broom over that." Our next story is cargo gets priority? You got it, boss. Hello, I'm writing as it's happening right now. I work as a ramp agent in a regional airport in Europe. We've been suffering a worker shortage for years now, but it finally became critical. We do not anymore have the personnel to operate all the flights. Our highest paying customer is a famous cargo company who is really picky about rules and such, plus they want a really specific amount of workers under the flight. In order to cover for that, our boss told us, if you're called for the cargo, just drop what you're doing and run to the cargo. They are our top customers. We have to give them priority. You got it, boss. Today we have some sicknesses, so we had to pull everybody from all of the other flights. The flight I'm currently under could have been finished in 3 minutes, and now it'll be delayed by I don't know how long. Have fun with all the complaints from the other companies. Update, as of 6:28, all doors are closed. Sadly, the aircraft was supposed to leave at 6:20, so the slot was lost. New slot will be at 7:04 LT, 1 hour delay. Update 2, it is malicious because what we used to do was leave a guy behind with the ramp agent, me, to finish the loading. We're not doing that anymore because management said, just drop what you're doing. And honestly, both the guys and me are ticked to always run and make an effort for garbage pay and to see more and more seasonal colleagues left at home because there isn't enough work, so that we always have to run and work unsafely. Here's the thing, right? This cargo company, sure, the highest by far paying customer, but they still have a number 2, a number 3, and so on. Doing this the way they are, they will never get another cargo company again. They might preserve that contract or the payments that they're getting from cargo company, but who else is going to put up with such awful service if you're not the cargo company? FaxMe1 commented, I used to work for a company that gave preferential treatment to their main customer to the detriment of other customers. I left because it was certainly a bad business model that was not sustainable. Later on, that main customer abandoned them for someone cheaper. Since they could not develop and keep other customers, the company folded. Our next story is Expense Reimbursement Policy. I'll follow it to the letter. At my previous job, we have a strict expense reimbursement policy. The rule? Only expenses with receipts were reimbursed, no exceptions. One month, I traveled for work and had a few small expenses like bus fares, street parking, and tipping, where getting a receipt was impossible. I submitted my report, clearly listing these minor charges totaling around $20. Rejected. My manager said, no receipt, no reimbursement. Policy is policy. We need every receipt for audit purpose. Fine. Cue malicious compliance. The next trip, I went all in. Needed a bottle of water? Bought it from the fancy cafe with a printed receipt. Short taxi ride? No cash. Only expensive app-based rides with e-receipts. Instead of public transport, I took more costly options that provided invoices. Tipping a server? No cash. Added it to the bill at high-end restaurants with detailed receipts. My total expenses, $280 instead of $20. When finance processed my claim, my manager was furious. Why is this so high? I said, well, you said no receipt, no reimbursement. So I made sure everything had a receipt. A new policy was introduced the following week. Reasonable expenses may be reimbursed at management's discretion, even without receipts. This is a classic example of micromanagement or manglement or whatever you want to call it, because you can't trust that somebody is reporting accurately like a $2 bus fare or whatever. Now you're going to go and annoy the ever-loving crap out of your employee, and a lot of them probably don't actually care about your bottom line. But they certainly will when you start affecting their bottom line by turning down their $20 reimbursement. Can anybody actually be seen as being in the wrong for turning around and trying to run up the costs? But, having the receipts in a situation like that? One quirky one commented, I worked on a large team that had a few managers for the team as a whole. One manager was scrutinizing my expense report, asking about each line until the admin assistant stopped him with, this guy's expenses are consistently 75% of what others submit. Don't bother auditing him. After that, my expenses went higher, and I timed my submissions for when that manager wasn't around. Our next story is work from home on Thursdays and Fridays only. There's not much to say here. I work for a tech company that sells MacBooks and Chromebooks and miscellaneous things to school. There's a rule in place that says we are not allowed to work from home under any circumstances, with the exception of Thursdays and Fridays if you don't have any meetings or the such. Yesterday, we got a bunch of quotes from one of our distributors, and the aim of today was to get all of the SKUs and codes into our system for one of the bigwig expensive Catholic schools. And these codes came in extremely last minute. Like, we have 6 working hours to fill out everything. I did what I could yesterday and told my manager that I would have to do the rest tomorrow since it was late notice. Today, the internet is down at work. The quote for approximately $1.5 million worth of stock is due in 2 hours. And to be honest, I'd be more inclined to hotspot my phone to get this work done if they paid me more than the bare minimum and gave me a phone allowance. My previous pay evaluations were all rejected, and if I'm contributing 5 to 10% gross profit margins on literal millions, you would think there was at least commission. Oh well, if I could only go home to use my working internet, or got $5 to $10 a month for my monthly bill so that I could get this done via hotspot. Oh well. Edit, just got a scathing phone call that the deadline was missed and was asked for an explanation. I told them straight that I couldn't access our systems. They asked why I didn't hotspot and told them I don't have a company phone, nor do they give me any money to my phone bill. It's also a data risk if my phone is compromised. I've never felt so powerful sticking up to the jerk in a new BMW every year. Kinda feels nice. Update 2, there is no update. I have 3 hours left of this 9 to 5 and we still have no internet. At this point, they've told us to all work from home, so I'm just about to pack my laptop up and head off so I can do something. Bit late, but also most people aren't even aware of this because they sent it in an email. How do I know this? I get a Teams notification whenever I get an email from internal people at the company, which doesn't help when nobody in the dang office has internet. Might get a coffee. It's hard work doing free call. After that, I'll head home. Can I point out the irony, by the way, that this is a tech company involved with millions of dollars? A tech company, and their internet is the downfall here. We sell all these devices to school and whatnot, but we could never hook up our employees with any kind of company phone or any kind of competent backup fallback plan in case our millions of dollars worth of stock is suddenly unable to move. Toput 2038 commented, "Boom. That's the sound of management shooting themselves in the foot." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.